Yujiro rapes Diane Neal to take revenge on her, then goes outside and destroys the army waiting for him. 9 months later, Diane bears his child, and this child was later named Jack. America still tries to get rid of Yujiro and sends all its best units against him. However, the young fighter defeats all of them. Ultimately, the Americans turn to Biscuit Oliva, who is a powerful man and a VIP convict in the Arizona prison. Oliva is hired to get rid of Yujiro under the pretext of eliminating some drug cartel dealer. Oliva introduces himself to Yujiro when they meet, and the young fighter lets him know that he knows who Oliva is. The prisoner is happy with this fact and starts a short fight with him. But after a while, Yujiro runs away, saying that he prefers to leave Oliva for another time. In the end, America decides to form an alliance with Yujiro. In other words, the USA is completely defeated by one man, Yujiro Hanma. Then, Yujiro once appeared at a big, inexpensive banquet. In this place, for the first time, he meets Emi Akazawa, who comes there with her husband Ichi Akazawa. Yujiro and Emi almost immediately notice each other in the crowd and starts to look at each other. Yujiro undresses her with his eyes, so when the jealous husband Eiichi Akazawa sees it, he enters and starts talking to Yujiro. Eiichi spills champagne on his suit, for which Yujiro gives Emi a kiss. Angry Eiichi attacks him, but Lorian Grassi, a Brazilian fighter, stops them. The fighter wants to defend Eiichi, so he challenges Yujiro and loses the fight quickly. Later that night, knowing that Emi likes him, Yujiro breaks into Akazawa's mansion. He asks where Emi is and then kills Ichi before her eyes. After a while, Yujiro embraces and kisses Emi, telling her that he likes the bloodthirst in her eyes. He also confesses to her that he wants her to be the mother of his child. Soon after that, their son Baki Hanma is born. Later, Yujiro appears for the first time during the duel between Baki and Hanayama. He appears when both fighters have finished their fight. Yujiro ridicules them and states that this battle should not end yet, since they are both alive. The provoked Hanayama attacks Yujiro, but he can't do anything. Baki tries to help Hanayama, but is knocked out with one blow by his father. Eventually, Hanayama is almost destroyed by the strongest man in the world. He easily knocks Hanayama out, stating that he only lost his time to meet such weaklings. Later, Yujiro visits Emi Akazawa, who is surprised and happy to see him. She tries to throw herself into his arms, but he rejects her and criticizes her for not having brought up Baki in a proper way, stating that their son is still too weak. He also tells her that he will now take their son's development into his own hands. After a while, Emi gets angry and rushes with a razor at Yujiro, who easily stops her. Her bloodlust makes him happy, and he kisses her. Eventually, Yujiro says that he will test Baki, for which Emi has trained him so far. Soon after that, Yujiro goes to the mountains and kills Yashazaru. He does it only to bring and show Baki the head of the ape, with which his son made a friendly relationship. Yujiro meets Baki during his training, and he shows him the head of the dead monkey, and Baki goes crazy. Yujiro manages to provoke his son, and desperate Baki tries to attack him. His father stops him and says he wants to fight him next month. Some time passes, and Stridum comes to talk to Yujiro. During the conversation, the ogre learns that Baki defeated Gaia, the master of the battlefield. Baki's father states that this is not a great feat at all, and decides to do something much better than his son did. He calls the Prime Minister of Japan, and says he'll be here in an hour to kill him. Then he really shows up at the Prime Minister's mansion and defeats a huge number of guards on his own. And then he shows up in the Prime Minister's room and raises his leg up to make a kick. The Prime Minister thinks he'll be murdered, but Yujiro only breaks his desk. He tells him that he should take better care of his protection, and then he leaves. Later, before the big match with Baki, Yujiro visits his old friend Kanemoto, who likes to hunt. They're talking about the fact that Yujiro is going to fight his son. Kanemoto begins a short philosophical speech about what a fight is for Yujiro, but suddenly the ogre interrupts him, saying that he did not come to visit only to drink his bitter tea. Kanemoto shows him his great and powerful bow, which he constructed by himself, and Yujiro urges him to shoot him. The old friend finally agrees, but the strongest creature on Earth easily stops the arrow flying in his direction. Shortly afterward, he meets with Emi at the hotel. She wants to show him her crazy love and have sex with him. Then Yujiro tells her that he is not interested in her at all, and that if Baki disappoints him in the fight, he will break contact with her. When he leads her to an emotional breakdown, she asks if she can stay the night anyway, but he wants her to leave. When the day of his fight with his son comes, Yujiro is attacked by Gaia, who wants to test his skills. Gaia, of course, loses the fight, even though both fighters have long been considered by people as equals. Later, Yujiro arrives by helicopter at the duel scene, where Baki and many of his friends are waiting. The first of the helicopters gets out the humiliated Gaia, who kneels down by Yujiro. The ogre is also accompanied by Emi Akizawa, Hitoshi Kuriyagawa, and an old soldier known as Sir. Their big match starts with an unexpected earthquake, but Yujiro stops it by hitting the ground. Everyone is surprised by the great power of Yujiro, but Baki tries not to worry about this unusual show of strength and attacks his father. Baki does his best during the fight, but is unable to give any serious damage to his father. Yujiro is still very satisfied with the level of his son, and happily announces to Emi that today he will eat a delicious dish. At some point, excited Yujiro starts brutally knocking out his son and almost kills him, but he is stopped by Emi, who in such a critical situation decided to protect her child. Emi attacks Yujiro with a blow to the face, and Yujiro is surprised that Emi finally started to be a mother. However, eventually, the ogre hugs her for the last time and breaks her spine. Then Yujiro gets into a crazy mood and knocks out all the people who came to watch the fight, and then he just leaves the crime scene. Later, during the Underground Arena saga, Yujiro made his first proper appearance at the end of Baki's fight with Mount Toba. Yujiro suddenly enters the arena, and all the people are surprised. Baki is furious at the sight of his father because this is their first meeting in a very long time. He rushes at him impulsively, but Yujiro effortlessly knocks out Baki. He is seen by Doppo Orochi, who also enters the arena. Doppo tells him that he still hasn't forgotten the scars, which are a reminder of their former struggle. Both fighters attack each other, but after a while they stop, and Doppo asks the chairman, Mitsunari Tokugawa, to set up a match between him and Yujiro, and Tokugawa happily agrees to this offer. Later that night, Stridum drives Yujiro to a local boxing gym, where he starts a fight with the reigning boxing champion. During that fight, Yujiro admits that beating other people is better for him than having sex. Yujiro then effortlessly defeats the champion named Yuichi Tatsumi, with everyone at the gym, and then leaves. Later, one day Yujiro meets with Izu Motobo on the street. Motobi tells him that he felt jealous when he found out that Doppo was going to fight against the ogre. He also tells him that he wants to settle personal business with Yujiro. The ogre decides to fight on the grass rather than concrete, and Motobi takes this as an act of fear by Yujiro. He thinks that Yujiro doesn't want to fight him on the ground, because Motobi is a master of using throwing techniques during the fight. Yujiro states that he doesn't want anybody to interfere. Motobe shows that he has made great progress during his last years of training, and Yujiro even praises him for that. But unfortunately, he has no chance to win against the strongest creature on Earth. Eventually, Yujiro knocks him out by throwing him to the ground, mockingly stating that Motobi is lucky because they didn't fight on concrete. Later, just before the start of the big clash, Yujiro lies down and relaxes in the locker room of the underground arena. When the fight begins, Doppo starts off the fight by jumping on top of Yujiro and putting him in a full-body headlock. Yujiro reacts by running and jumping off a wall, then slamming his back to the ground. Doppo dodges in time, and then delivers an axe kick at Yujiro, which the ogre dodges. Yujiro tries to use the Udande technique against Doppo, while at the same time Doppo uses the Meiba stance, which is also a defensive-based style. Yujiro attacks first, giving Doppo the benefit of the attack, and he punches the ogre 5 times in the chest. Yujiro stands up, undamaged, and wildly punches at Doppo, while Doppo tries to block. The fight continues, and Doppo uses Sangan, a fighting technique that allows the user to block all the opponent's strikes by making the user's eyes mimic that of a chameleon's. Therefore, he was able to see attacks from all directions on Yujiro. The ogre is unable to get past this defense, and Doppo then proceeds to continually punch Yujiro. Doppo successfully lands consecutive hits on him, until Baki arrives and is seen by the ogre. Yujiro becomes enraged at the sight of Baki, causing him to unleash his demon back. With Yujiro's strength and speed now boosted, Doppo's punches no longer have an effect on him. Yujiro grabs Doppo's hand and nearly rips one of his fingers off. Stridum makes the remark to Baki that Doppo's attacks are meant for humans, but the ogre is something inhumanely powerful. Yujiro then viciously attacks Doppo, with each hit cutting the Doppo's body off. Doppo attempts to try and pierce the ogre's abs with his arms, only to be outdone by Yujiro's reflexes and have his eardrums ruptured. Doppo falls to the ground for a few seconds, with everyone watching thinking he is done. Doppo stands back up to keep fighting, but Yujiro then suddenly rips Doppo's right eye out of its socket, and the ogre finishes the match by delivering a punch directly to Doppo's heart, which ends up almost killing him. Later, he comes to see his son's fight against Kureha Shinogi. At some point, it seems that Baki has lost, and then Kureha provokes Yujiro to come down to the arena. Yujiro accepts the offer and comes to him. But then Baki rises up and tells his father to not interfere. The ogre looks at Baki's fighting position and guesses what technique his son will try to use. He wishes him good luck and leaves the ring. So Baki defeats Kureha with the Gutaijutsu strike, and Yujiro explains Baki's technique to stride him. Then during the Maximum Tournament saga, Yujiro unexpectedly appears in the fighter's locker room during the Maximum Tournament. Tokugawa asks him to not destroy his tournament, and Yujiro says he only came to watch. Nevertheless, he wants his young companion, Yu Amanai, to join the tournament. The ogre breaks the spine of one of the competitors to free up space for his companion. Amanai sees this brutal act and hits Yujiro with his open hand in the face, telling him that he recognizes him as a fighter, but hates his violence. At first, it is unknown who Yujiro's comrade is, but then it turns out he's a martial artist who met Yujiro in the USA. When Amanai worked for the American government, the ogre was impressed by the fighting style and philosophy of Amanai, so he brought him to Japan. Most of the time, Yujiro sits next to Tokugawa during the tournament and watches the fights. At some point, he gets bored and goes outside. He meets a Muay Thai champion named Chamuan. Their fight is very short, and Yujiro beats him with just one finger. When Chamuan is knocked out, Yujiro smiles and says that this should satisfy him for a while. During the tournament, Yujiro meets Jack Hammer. When Jack wins his fight in the first round, Yujiro goes into the arena to talk to him. Both fighters are almost starting to fight, but they're interrupted by a jealous Baki. Yujiro throws him aside with one blow so he won't stop them. After a while, Jack walks up to Yujiro and tells him something that makes Yujiro very happy. And after a while, the ogre announces that Jack has every right to fight him. Later, when Amanai finds that Doppo Orochi is already damaged enough to finish the fight, he starts asking Tokugawa and the audience to recognize him as the winner, because he does not want to use any more violence. Then Yujiro enters and attacks Amanai with a blow to the edge of his hand, which deforms Amanai's collarbone. Yujiro calls him a weakling and throws him to the wooden barrier of the arena. He wants to fight all current winners in the tournament, in exchange for disrupting the tournament. That's when Kureha comes and says that Yujiro should fight the losers because this tournament can't end like this. The ogre beats them all without a problem. Then all the victors enter the arena and start to provoke Yujiro. However, suddenly Yujiro is shot with tranquilizer bullets. It turns out that those shots were planned by Tokugawa and Baki to stop Yujiro. He's taken away and moved to a closed room with a steel door. But after some time he wakes up, breaks down the door, and leaves. Before Baki's match with Kaiju Retsu, Yujiro returns to talk to his son's opponent. He tells him he should be afraid of this fight. During the battle, Yujiro watches his son's brutality and hopes that Retsu will awaken the true Hanma spirit in Baki. However, ultimately Baki does not kill Retsu, even though he is very close to doing it. After the fight, Yujiro meets Baki and tells him that he is disappointed because of his son's death. When the final fight between Baki and Jack is about to take place, Yujiro meets Jack before the match begins. Jack tells him that when he wins the fight against Baki, he will come to defeat Yujiro. During the final fight, Jack turns out to be the son of Yujiro and Diane Neal. After the fight, when Jack was defeated, Yujiro meets Jack again. He is disappointed in his defeat and his destroyed body. He turns away from his son and tells him to leave, but Jack attacks him. A beaten fighter tries to bite Yujiro, but fails miserably. In return, the ogre bites Jack brutally, and then he easily knocks out tired Jack, criticizes him for losing twice in one day, and then leaves. Later, in the Death Row Convict Saga, Yujiro is shown for the first time when he watches television, in which they talk about 5 convicts who have come to Tokyo. Yujiro is in the middle of a small training session, and at the same time smoking a cigarette, which he kicks out after a while, and then starts laughing at the police, who in his opinion will never understand how 5 prisoners arrived at the same time. Yujiro himself refers to the phenomenon of synchronicity. He hires Sikorsky to kidnap Kozue to make Baki fight him. Later, he briefly scuffles with Sikorsky, but then Oliva shows up to arrest Sikorsky. Then he visits Baki and his girl in the middle of the night and encourages Baki and Kozue to have sex as many times as possible in order to make Baki stronger. Later, he brutalizes Yanagi for refusing to admit defeat to Motobi after getting his arm cut off. Then in the Great Chinese Challenge saga, Yujiro decides to test Muhammad Ali Jr. and is pissed when Jr. left the match unfinished. He fights Ryu Kayu and violently rips off his face. He later fights Kayu Kaku, who manages to put up a good fight, but the fight ends when Kaku suddenly dies of old age. Yujiro then meets Kaku after he was revived and promised him to fight again in a century. Then in godlike Clash of the Kids saga, Yujiro visits Muhammad Ali and they talk about the outcoming fight between their sons. He tells Ali that Baki, while not being perfect, still has his Hanma blood flowing in him. Later, he goes to the underground arena and announces the beginning of the fight. After Baki's victory, Yujiro is challenged by his Baki. He gets excited and recognizes Baki as his prey. He leaves the arena while he says to Mitsunari that he'll be waiting for his call. He then flies to Africa and fights against a lion. While Yujiro was in Africa, a giant monstrous elephant was rampaging and killed 41 humans and 977 animals. After the elephant destroys the task force led by Saman, Yujiro shows up and kills the elephant very easily. Right after this, he leaves and goes to a summer house and stays for a while. One day, Jerry Stridham visits him. Then, Yujiro learns from Stridham about Baki's special training, and he laughs at this because of how ridiculous he finds Baki's way of training. Later, during the Great Prison Battle Saga, at the end of the Jungovaru and Biscuit Oliva's battle, Yujiro briefly shows up in Gavaru's hallucination, congratulating him on beating Biscuit Oliva. Meanwhile, in real life, he is seen inside a car using President George Bush as his personal driver. Later, he goes to the White House and tests the capacity of the president's security staff. And after the president is thrown by a window, he saves him in the last second and congratulates the young boy who chose to act like that in order to protect the president, rather than fighting him. Then during the Pickle Saga, Yujiro appeared for the first time at the guarded military facility, where Pickle was brought surely to test the might of this new 190 million years old creature. At the time when Retsu and others were sneaking their way through the guards hiding in the shadows, Yujiro Hanma comes to the front gate. After being stopped by the guards, Yujiro activates his frightening aura and makes 3 armed big dudes fight each other. Later, Yujiro gets to Pickle's apartment, which is simply a big square of bulletproof glass. He decided to test Pickle first, even though he was the last one to arrive. So after deeply insulting poor Katsumi, he went to meet Pickle by squeezing his face and his body through the bulletproof glass like it was some sort of packing tape in front of him, and not the wall that even bullets can't penetrate. The sharp, broken glass left no damage on his body, only ripped his shirt off. His pants were also left entirely unscathed. He then decided to test Pickle's strength by holding up a pistol and pushing against him. But Pickle is not a joke. He withstood Yujiro's pure strength. Yujiro realized that in terms of pure strength, Pickle is superior to him. So he decided to pull a move and threw Pickle to the ground. After this, he left Pickle's place along with all the other fighters, who came inside. Later, he was invited by Dopo Orochi to have a drink in a bar. After that, he goes to meet Tokugawa, and when he asks why Yujiro does not fight Pickle, he gets a bit mad and breaks some stuff around him and leaves the place. So after some time, Yujiro goes to meet the new USA president. So basically, Hanma Yujiro is so badass that every president of America swears that they will have a friendship treaty with him and will never interfere with his life. Simply, Yujiro can do whatever he wants, kill whoever he wants, and take whatever he wants in the USA, and he will be good with it. After that, the president wanted to see if Yujiro can turn coal into diamonds with his bare hands, and Yujiro fulfills his wish by doing it easily. Then Yujiro goes to the Arizona State Prison, where he and Biscuit Oliva face off against each other. Yujiro first knocks out Biscuit with a direct punch to his face, and when Biscuit decides to use his grip strength, he was again overpowered by Yujiro. And it simply proves that Yujiro is much more stronger than Biscuit Oliva, even without using the demon bat. After some time, Stridham gets ready by wearing highly advanced armor. The armor was equipped with a lot of explosives, and he planned to fight Yujiro Hanma using this armor. As he was mentally preparing himself to fight, Yujiro suddenly appears behind him and scares the crap out of him. He gets ready to attack Yujiro, but Yujiro just finds it funny and laughs at him. He thanks him for making him laugh this much. But in the next moment, Yujiro kicks his helmet and tells Stridham if he wants to really break their promise and fight against him. He still thinks that he might have a chance against him, but then he realizes that his armor was already sliced into pieces. And after witnessing this, Stridham just gives up. Later, when Yujiro's and Baki's final fight was coming close, Yujiro goes to meet Tokugawa and tells him to get a complete body checkup. Tokugawa was surprised and asked Yujiro why does he care about him. He starts shouting at Yujiro. Then suddenly he started coughing blood and soon he passed out. Yujiro tells Tokugawa's maid to call a doctor and then he leaves. As he was walking on the streets, he was able to notice everyone's weakness who was coming into his sight. It was like Yujiro's eyes could see through their bodies, and he was able to find every single person's weakness with just one look. Yujiro then goes to a restaurant in New York City. Their scribe tells him that Baki is now somewhat of a famous person in this world, which clearly infuriates Yujiro. Yujiro asks for more details, and Stridham tells him that Baki wants to have a normal father and son dinner with him. The President of the United States was having a secret meeting with the top leaders of Japan, and he was showing them the coal that Yujiro Hanma crushed for him. But then their meeting was interfered by Yujiro himself, and his sudden appearance scared the shit out of everyone present there. Yujiro was infuriated, and he crushed the jar carrying the coal dust and made a cross with it, then told the USA President to repeat his oath in front of him. When the President repeats his oath, Yujiro shouts at him, tells him that he doesn't seem to respect him, because he's trying to interfere in a quarrel between him and his son. The President says that the fight between Yujiro and Baki is not just any normal fight. It's more like a fight between nations, and they have to observe it closely. Yujiro likes his honesty, and tells the President to not enter his field of vision when he will observe their fight from the side. Later, it was shown on a news channel that thousands of people were walking on a bridge, and at the same moment, lightning struck the bridge, but no one was injured by that lightning. It was because the lightning actually struck Yujiro, and at the moment of impact, Yujiro's entire skeleton became visible. His skull was in the shape of a monster, and everyone who saw that image, including the news reporters, was completely shocked and could not believe that it was actually real. Later, at his place, Baki was preparing coffee, but then suddenly Yujiro paid him a visit, and it was so sudden that Baki did not know what to do in this situation. But still, he made coffee and gave it to his father as well. Yujiro got angry because he didn't enjoy it, so Baki apologized for it as well. After talking for some time and ripping Baki's table into 4 pieces, Yujiro left Baki's place and told him that he will have dinner with him. So Baki prepares dinner for Yujiro and fixes the table that Yujiro had previously broken. He was kind of surprised when Yujiro finally came for dinner, but he was also happy because he always wanted to live this moment. Yujiro thanked Baki for cooking the dinner, and Baki was surprised because he didn't believe that his father could ever be his friend. Yujiro thought they had a good conversation, and Baki felt so good because Yujiro was finally acting like the father that Baki has always wanted. When they finish their dinner, Baki asks Yujiro if he can wash the dishes. Yujiro says that they will decide this by playing rock, paper, scissors, and the loser will wash and clean dishes. When they play it, Baki actually wins and thinks that Yujiro will clean the dishes, but Yujiro just forces his scissors to cut Baki's rock. So in the end, Baki had to clean all the dishes. After this, Yujiro invites Baki to have dinner with him on the next day. And then he goes outside and scares the shit out of the guards, who were tasked to spy on Yujiro and Baki. On the next day, Baki goes to a super fancy restaurant that Yujiro has booked for their dinner. Baki was in casual clothes. But on the other hand, Yujiro makes his appearance in fancy clothes. Baki was surprised by how Yujiro behaved in the restaurant, and even in front of the restaurant. But he felt good, because he got to learn a lot of things from his father. But soon things started heating up between the two of them when Baki asked Yujiro why he killed his mother. Baki grabbed Yujiro's collar, and Yujiro got so angry that the entire building was shaking because of his aura. Yujiro was going mad, and to teach Baki a lesson, Yujiro spanked his butt so hard that Baki flew out of the window, but still Baki manages to come back in. Yujiro keeps beating Baki, and he grabs his head, and then they fall out from the window upon a parked car. They keep exchanging blows, but Baki keeps getting knocked by Yujiro, and Yujiro seems almost unharmed by all of Baki's attacks. Yujiro hits Baki with a whip-like attack, and Baki experiences an insane amount of pain. But when he top leaders of Japan, between Yujiro and Baki, is not just any normal fight. It's more like a fight between nations, and they have to observe it closely. Yujiro likes his honesty, and tells the President to not enter his field of vision when he will observe their fight on the side. Later, it was shown on a news channel that thousands of people were walking on a bridge, and at the same moment, lightning struck the bridge, but no one was injured by that lightning. It was because the lightning actually struck Yujiro, and at the moment of impact,
for the quarry!
Disown that top tower.
Oops. Put aside for now. Rock on. You got it.
What's with all the scribbling?
Yes. Right away. Of course. What have we here? Of course. Coming in. Forward. Better save food.
As a gem.
Rolling.
I have DD, guys.
A rolling stone. I gather no boss.
Central.
You got it.
Fuck, man. That D word better. That works.
Impact, Yujiro's entire skeleton became visible. His skull was in the shape of a monster, and that Baki did not know what to do in this situation. But still, the lightning actually news replace. Baki was preparing coffee, but then suddenly Yujiro pays him a visit, and it was so sudden that Baki did not know what to do in this situation. But still, he made coffee and gave it to his father as well. Yujiro got angry because he didn't enjoy it, so Baki apologized for it as well. After talking for some time and ripping Baki's table into 4 pieces, Yujiro left Baki's place and told him that he will have dinner with him. So Baki prepares dinner for you.
Tiny, coming in. Right away. Into the water. I'll take that.
Go Roche.
Going.
You can be your mid tower right about now.
for the quarry!
No breaking down the radiant structures like this.
Rolling out! Of course! Rock on!
Yujiro and fixes the table that Yujiro had previously broken. He was kind of surprised when Yujiro finally came for dinner, but he was also happy because he always wanted to live this moment. Yujiro thanked Baki for cooking the dinner, and Baki was surprised because he didn't believe that his father could ever be this polite. Yujiro and Baki had a good conversation, and Baki felt so good that he wanted to cry, because Yujiro was finally acting like the father that Baki has always wanted. When they finished their dinner, Baki asks Yujiro if he can wash the dishes. Yujiro
Rock'em, sock'em!
Sure, I guess. You don't want it?
I hit grips. You hit power.
You got it. Rock on! Going! Hardy, coming in! Rolling stone!
A golden thread.
Attack! Get up! Sure!
Fight, we don't have ultis.
Better save
No.
for later. You got it. Hey. I gather no boss. We've a quarry to settle. Rolling out. For the quarry. Rolling. Of course. Rock on.
You can go in first. And then jump to A.
Coming in. I gather no boss.
Tower, dude. You have ages now.
Rolling.
I'm gonna go on A or Lion.
Rolling stone. You got it.
Your top tower's in trouble. That top tower of yours ain't doing so good.
just go like Lincoln's? They use buybacks.
Your bottom tower ain't long.
Okay.
Yes, bounty.
This is a good opportunity to learn.
Jiro says that they will decide this by playing rock, paper, scissors, and the loser will wash and clean dishes. When they play it, Beiki actually wins and thinks that Yujiro will clean the dishes, but Yujiro just forces his scissors to cut Beiki's rock. So in the end, Baki had to clean all the dishes. After this, Yujiro invites Baki to have dinner with him on the next day. And then he goes outside and scares the shit out of the guards, who were tasked to spy on Yujiro and Baki. On the next day, Baki goes to a super fancy restaurant that Yujiro has booked for their dinner. Baki was in casual clothes, but on the other hand, Yujiro makes his appearance in fancy clothes. Baki was surprised by how Yujiro behaved in the restaurant, and even in front of the restaurant manager. But he felt good, because he got to learn a lot of things from his father. But soon things started heating up between the two of them when Baki asked Yujiro why he killed his mother. Baki grabbed Yujiro's collar, and Yujiro got so angry that the entire building was shaking because of his aura. Yujiro was going mad, and to teach Baki a lesson, Yujiro spanked his butt so hard that Baki flew out of the window. But still, Baki manages to come back in. Yujiro keeps beating Baki, and he grabs his head, and then they fall out from the window upon a parked car. They keep exchanging blows, but Baki keeps getting knocked by Yujiro, and Yujiro seems almost unharmed by all of Baki's attacks. Yujiro hits Baki with a whip-like attack, and Baki experiences an
Damn, bro. Permanent invis.
insane amount of pain, but when he uses the same attack on Yujiro, but unlike Baki, Yujiro manages to hide his pain. Then Baki, without hesitation,
My bad. I think we just fight them outside their base. and jump the targets first. We have better team fight. They just have pick off with like SB and shit.
Lands multiple shots at Yujiro, but because of his durability, Yujiro effortlessly blocks most of them. This pushes Baki to pull out his Triceratops fist, causing Yujiro to make a surprised face. With his Triceratops fist, Baki was managing to push Yujiro. But in the response, Yujiro begins to pull up his imagination fighting style. So Yujiro's shirt blows up with a smiling demon shockwave hitting everyone who was watching. With this, Yujiro Hanma activated his demon back. Baki attacked and landed some hits on Yujiro, which made Yujiro praise Baki, and hearing praise from his father made Baki cry. Yujiro tries to pat him in the head, but Baki dodges him until Yujiro grabs him and forces it to occur. Soon, Pickle arrives to take part in this fun. He
Kill this.
They're meaning to smash that.
Fuck.
Some of my best friends are fossils.
Quick and clean. Hate to be your mid-tower.
That's a strange manner of conduct.
Rockfall coming.
Oh wait, can you give me the what's it called? The Lotus?
Hold and thread.
A rolling stone.
Weaver, drop the Lotus, bro. My career will pick it up. Just drop it on the ground anywhere. I just need like two. Yeah, I already have. Jeez, let's go. What a 43-minute BKB.
Rockfall coming. Rockfall coming.
Just wait next Roche and fight them outside. Phoenix needs to not die first, bro. That's what Does everyone have shard? Hero doesn't have shard.
Might want to check your bottom tower. Radiant's gone and fortified structures. Your bottom tower's in a tight spot. It'll be partial to your bottom tower. No breaking through the dire structures for now. Your bottom tower's in a tight spot. trying to bust.
The lesson for you is never
This is a
try.
good opportunity to learn.
Structure's looking fortified.
你这么菜，你的队友不会，你这么菜，你的队友不会生气吧，哥哥？
The other fella's bottom tower's gone. The other fella's finished. The other fella's Your top tower's getting all banged up. Your top tower. The other fella's top tower ain't in trouble no more.
I'm Roche bottom. Here, don't die, don't die. Just come bot. Wait, who took my blink? Oh wait, so yeah, never mind. Sure. Alright, I got the block of cheese. Alright, just let me go first. I'll die. It's not hit the tower. You got quick fingers for reporting. I'm impressed. Sheesh. This was a good team. I don't care. I just want to get my treasures, man. Let me get the Wraith King thing so I can play Wraith King. I don't like that. Alright, let me get okay. Let me get it safe lane so I can play Ursa.
He gains Yujiro's attention, but is punched by Baki, which makes Pickle realize that this isn't his fight now. So Pickle becomes a good boy, and quietly sits down in a corner to watch his fight. He gains Yujiro, grabs him, and forces it to occur. Soon, Pickle arrives to take part in this fun. He gains Yujiro's attention, but is punched by Baki, which makes Pickle realize that this isn't his fight now. So Pickle becomes a good boy, and quietly sits down in a corner to watch their fight like everyone else. As the fight continues, Yujiro knocks out Baki again and again. Soon Yujiro's father, Yuichiro Hanma, appears in spirit form, and he makes fun of Yujiro Hanma and also encourages Baki to win this fight. When the fight continues, Yujiro uses his father's technique on Baki. With that technique, Baki is smashed against a car multiple times. But soon, Baki also lands a kick and a punch on him, and Yujiro was taking major damage. Baki continues with more attacks, which includes the legendary Nut Shot, which landed perfectly this time. So their fight goes on for a long time, but Baki is eventually knocked out by Yujiro, and with it, their fight comes to an end. So in the end, Yujiro Hanma shares the title of the world's strongest creature with Baki, probably because Baki pushed him to his extremes more than anyone else. So a very boring time comes after the end of the father and son fight, because no one was fighting and no one had any real challenge to face. During this boring time, Hanayama wants to fight Yujiro in order to get some excitement. When they met, Hanayama punches Yujiro and Yujiro gets a little nosebleed. But when Yujiro attacks, he is able to completely destroy Hanayama. But still, Hanayama enjoys the beating, as it allowed him to feel the excitement once again. After some time, Yujiro Hanma faces against Musashi Miyamoto, who was revived in the modern era. Miyamoto Musashi wasn't able to cut him like the others, and called his body something like a suit of armor. So Yujiro initially dominated the fight, and Miyamoto even lost the grip of his sword for the first time in his life, and was shocked at how this was able to happen. Musashi realized the overwhelming strength of Yujiro, but near the end of the fight, Miyamoto got extremely serious and was going for the kill. But Izu Motobe interfered in their fight and took the blow that was meant for Yujiro. Yujiro gets angry and goes crazy and starts beating up Motobe even though he's already pretty much knocked out from the blow. So then they decided to call their fight a draw. But still, Miyamoto Musashi was able to land multiple cuts on Yujiro Hanma. And even Yujiro knew that Musashi is unlike any opponent he previously faced. So after this, Musashi and Yujiro don't get to face each other. But honestly, I would have loved to watch these two fighting in an all-out battle in the underground arena. Then, during the Baki Sumo arc, Yujiro is first seen beating up Trump and meeting Joe Biden in the United States of America. From a test report, it was also revealed that Yujiro Hanma has testosterone levels 10 times higher than any other male on the planet, which essentially makes everyone female from his point of view. Yujiro also faces off against Nomi no Sukune, who was already on a losing streak. Yujiro slams him down and was easily able to handle Sukune's attacks. He then easily finishes off Sukune and leaves. Yujiro then meets the current Kehaya, and he has a kicking competition against Yujiro. Surprisingly, the Kehaya manages to kick Yujiro through the roof, but Yujiro returns and acts like nothing happened. But after that, when Yujiro kicks the guy through the roof, he doesn't fall back or return to show his face. So that's all we have for this video, and if you guys enjoyed it, then make sure to get subscribed to the channel.
Ever notice how fountains make you feel really good, but also really weird?
A long time ago, the strongest creature on Earth grew bored of defeating whole armies and fighting wild creatures. There was no one on the face of the Earth who could stand up to him. So he decided to have a son who could give him the fight that no one else could. Yujiro wasted no time and went in search of the woman who could give him the son he wanted. That's how he met Emi Akasawa, a woman who on the outside looked fragile and fearful, but in reality was as evil as he was. Emi had a dark heart, and her love for blood was almost equal to Yujiro's. Clearly they were made for each other. So after Yujiro ended her husband's life, Emi agreed to be the mother of his child. And so Baki Hanma, the son of the strongest man on Earth, was born. From an early age, Baki had to learn to fend for himself. His father put him through a tough training. Poor Baki did not have the opportunity to play like other kids. All he could think about was training and becoming strong. Baki was taken to train in the mountains, where he would have to live the wild life. There he met Ando, an old friend of his father. Ando took care of him and became his mentor. These trainings were repeated for a long time, however, seeing that Baki didn't progress. Yujiro stopped training him and left Emi in charge of his training. Yujiro ordered Emi to make Baki strong enough to fight him, otherwise he would stop seeing her as a woman. Emi used her fortune to give Baki the best training possible. She paid the best instructors and the best gyms. She wanted Baki to have a condition equal to that of a professional athlete. It's worth mentioning that Emi kept all of her ex-husband's money and could spend as much money as she wanted. This whole process happened when Baki was just a kid. Remember that at the beginning of the series, he was only 13 years old. But even at such a young age, Baki manages to defeat a crowd of men. And although later another group of men beat him with weapons, this only fuels his desire to become stronger. His mission in life was to become stronger to defeat his father. However, the training his mother gave him was not enough, and he decides to quit. On his way to become stronger, he meets a world boxing champion. Baki challenges him to a fight to prove his strength. But although he manages to hit him a couple of times, the champion defeats him easily. But far from discouraging him, this only makes him want to become stronger, so he decides to go to the mountains to train. There he meets Ando, his former mentor and best friend. Ando feeds and cares for him, and also tells him about a creature called Yasha that lives in the mountains and that even he has not been able to defeat. Baki doesn't think twice and quickly decides to pay a visit to this creature. Baki realizes that Yasha was far superior to him. Fortunately, Ando arrives to rescue him, but Yasha leaves him badly wounded and has to be hospitalized. Without Ando's company, Baki is left alone. But this doesn't stop his training, and he continues to apply everything his mentor had taught him. During this time, Baki learns to release and control the endorphins in his brain, thus increasing his reflexes and speed. Finally, Baki meets the creature again, and the two engage in a fierce battle. The fight is very hard for Baki, but he finally manages to defeat Yasha. The creature gives him one of its fangs as a token of respect. Baki has improved his physical skills and now feels that he has become strong, so he decides to return home. Baki's plan was to face the boxer who had defeated him last time. What he didn't expect was that a guy named Hanayama was going to injure his opponent, leaving him with no chance to fight. The truth is that it was his mother who sought out Hanayama to be Baki's rival. Actually, Hanayama is one of the mafia bosses and one of the strongest men in Japan. That's why Emi was interested in him. An important fact is that at this point in the series, Hanayama was only 15 years old, but already looked like a man in his 40s. Baki is excited to hear about this man and decides to go look for him at his hideout. Baki enters as if it were his home and doesn't think twice before going on the attack. He manages to take Hanayama down and tells him that if he wants a rematch, he will be waiting for him. Hanayama is furious at this humiliation and accepts Baki's challenge. The rematch takes place and Hanayama begins to dominate the fight, breaking Baki's arm. The fight was very tough. Both had great chances to win. However, it's Baki who takes the victory. The two boys show mutual respect for each other and a friendship begins. But suddenly, Baki's father appears. The ogre appears and hits Hanayama to show Baki that his training will not be enough to defeat him. Baki tries to help his friend, but Yujiro also hits him and knocks them both unconscious. Yujiro gets angry that Baki is still very weak, so to motivate him, he kills Yasha. This makes Baki angry, and now he is going to officially face his father in a month. Baki goes to talk to General Stridham, who is another old friend of his father. But before this, a weird moment happens as Baki eats Yasha's teeth. Surely this has a symbolic value in the series. Stridham tells Baki about a remote location where a group of mercenaries is hiding, and he must confront them to test his strength. Baki arrives at the place, and without much trouble defeats most of the soldiers of the squad. However, there is one in particular that gives him more trouble. This guy's name is Gaia, a guy with a split personality who gives Baki a hard time. On one side is Nomura, the nice guy, and on the other is Gaia, the most dangerous super soldier on the planet. However, after a long fight, Baki manages to defeat him and ends up winning his friendship. Baki returns home to talk to his mother, but she hits him in the face and tells him that he is still weak, and that because of him, Yujiro doesn't love her anymore. Baki leaves the hotel very sad. However, outside, he meets Hanayama, who takes him to his house where they talk like good friends. Finally, the day of his fight against his father arrives, and many people come to watch it. Baki attacks Yujiro in every possible way, but doesn't even tickle him. Despite this, Yujiro is not disappointed. He tells Emi that this time she has done a good job educating Baki. As was obvious, Yujiro defeats Baki, but that was not enough for him, so he starts beating him even though Baki was unconscious. Emi finally comes to her senses and realizes what was going on. She tries to help Baki, but Yujiro shows no mercy to anyone and ends her life. Before dying, Emi asks Baki for forgiveness. This far from making Baki fall into depression, only makes him want to be stronger to take revenge on his father.
We can all see where this is going. I'm not done.
During this period of time, he trains in various places, where he learns new techniques and gains experience. Baki returns home after learning about an underground fighting tournament, so he tries to enter the tournament to test his strength. The owner of the underground arena is Mitsunari Tokagawa, who at first is not convinced to accept Baki in his tournament, but after seeing the boy's strength, he ends up accepting it. Baki now lives with his girlfriend, Kosue Matsumoto, who supports him in everything and is deeply in love with him. Before the tournament begins, Baki meets Doppo Orochi, the world's strongest karate master, with whom he strikes up a good friendship. The underground arena tournament begins, and Baki's first opponent is Kosho, a fighter characterized by his peculiar fighting style that consists of cutting the nerves of his opponents. It's a difficult fight, but in the end Baki wins and, as usual, ends up befriending his opponent. During the course of the tournament, Baki will meet different characters. One of them is Motodi, with whom Baki fights but fails to defeat him. Baki's next opponent is a wrestler named Toba. This huge guy starts off dominating the fight, but after a while, Baki starts hitting him in the knees and knocks him down, managing to defeat him. In the middle of the tournament, the fight between Doppo and Yujiro takes place. The fight was very
guy was diving me right
Yujiro
here. Double
realizes that his son is watching him. He gets serious and activates the ultimate power of the Hama family, the Demon Bat. This is a power that increases Yujiro's strength. Yujiro defeats Doppo by punching him in the chest and causing his heart to stop beating. But luckily for Doppo, a doctor and fighter named Kuroha Shinagi saves his life. The thing is, this doctor was not as good a person as we thought. In fact, he was so evil that he even left a young girl in a wheelchair after using her for one of his experiments. The most interesting thing is that this man was going to be Baki's next opponent. The fight begins and Baki attacks Korha with a lot of rage until he knocks him to the ground. It looked like it was going to be an easy victory, but Korha returns to the fight and, making use of his knowledge of anatomy, manages to wound Baki in his vital points. Despite this, Baki overpowers the doctor and defeats him with a powerful blow to the stomach. That last blow leaves Shinabi so bad that he needs a blood transfusion to save his life. To his surprise, the girl he had left in a wheelchair offers to donate her blood to him. Thus, Korha softens up a bit and promises to be a better person. Finally, Baki wins the tournament, and with that, he earns the admiration of the other fighters. But nothing will be enough for him until he defeats his father. Time passes and Mitsunari announces a new tournament in which the winner will win a belt used in the ancient Roman Olympics. In this new tournament, we will meet new characters that will be very important in the series. After losing his right eye in his fight against Yujiro, Dopo has continued training and now wears an eye patch, and will also participate in the tournament. This new tournament will be divided into blocks, and the winners of each block will face each other until only two remain. The two finalists will be the ones who will fight for the belt and the right to be called champion. Baki's first opponent is a bigger fighter than him, but he still manages to defeat him easily and qualifies for the next round. In this tournament, Baki meets Retsu, a character that will be relevant later on. Retsu easily wins his first match after breaking his opponent's neck. The fighting continues and suddenly a wild creature infiltrates the tournament. To Baki's surprise, this creature was none other than Yasha's son, who was seeking revenge for what happened to his father. Yasha Jr. gets out of control and Dopo's son, Katsumi Orochi, stands in his way and is determined to kill him. However, Baki appears and saves Yasha Jr.'s life. The next round begins, and it's the turn of Katsumi, who uses a technique that allows him to run 100 meters in a couple of seconds. And with this, he defeats his opponent to qualify for the next round. Before Baki's next fight, there are a couple of other fights, some interesting and some not. The one I liked the most was Shiba versus Kohei, a judo master. The fight is very good, and Shiba wins using his head, literally. But the most interesting is when we meet Jack Hammer, who is actually Yujiro's son and Baki's brother. The point is that Jack kept his identity secret, and that is why he used the name Jack Hammer. Another important detail to note is that Jack used steroids to increase his strength, and since it was not illegal to use them, he managed to enter the tournament. After Jack won his match, Yujiro entered the arena to challenge him to a match because he seemed to be a very interesting guy. Baki gets jealous and tries to stop Jack from fighting his father. But to his bad luck, Yujiro sends him flying with a punch and tells him to stay out of it. Jack approaches Yujiro and tells him in his ear the whole truth. This makes Yujiro very happy, and now he just wants to see Jack fight against Baki, so it will be decided who of the two is more worthy to be his opponent. Again, it is Baki's turn, and now his opponent is Zulu, a Brazilian fighter who gives Baki a tough fight. But as expected, Yujiro's son wins and qualifies to the next round. Then we have the fight between Retsu and Toba. Despite the large size difference, Retsu wins the match. We also see one of the best fights in the series, which is Katsumi versus Hanayama. Although Hanayama dominated the fight, Katsumi managed to defeat him to qualify for the next round. Well, actually we all know that Hanayama intentionally let Katsumi win. The fights continue with Shiba versus McGregor and Dopo versus Amanai, who is Yujiro's disciple. Dopo and Shiba win their fights, but Shiba was so badly injured that he couldn't continue with the tournament. Shibakagwa faced Kosho, and thanks to his combat experience, Shibakagwa emerged victorious. Baki has to fight Igori Tanji, a man who was already in his last years as a professional wrestler, and so he asks Baki to let him win. Baki doesn't accept, so Igori has to use many tricks to try to beat Baki. But despite Igori's dirty tactics, Baki wins. Later, the fight between Retsu and Katsumi took place. A fight that didn't last long as Retsu easily defeated Katsumi, who had not yet recovered from his fight with Hanayama. In the next fight, Jack defeats the powerful Alexander Gallon. In this fight, Jack shows his fighting style, which is based on biting. This is not prohibited, so Jack takes advantage and wins the fight. Later, Shibukagwa defeats Dopo in a good fight. Either of them could have won, but in the end, Goki takes the victory. The semifinals are Jack versus Goki and Baki versus Retsu. As expected, both brothers win their respective fights and will now face each other in the grand final. Before the fight, Baki eats and rests to regain his strength. His friends warn him that Jack is a dirty fighter and uses steroids, but this doesn't bother Baki, and he says he will win no matter what. The grand final has arrived and both brothers show each other respect before the fight. Jack dominates most of the fight, however. Baki was waiting for the right moment and using everything he had learned throughout the tournament, manages to hit Jack and leave him in bad shape. It seemed that everything was already decided. However, far from weakening Jack, this puts him in a state of adrenaline and begins to hit Baki without giving him a chance to breathe. The problem is that the effect lasted only a few seconds, and as a consequence, Jack vomits all the chemicals he had ingested before the fight. This makes him lose his muscles, and apparently weakens him. But even though his body was in bad condition, Jack didn't give up and continued attacking Baki. What Jack didn't expect was that Baki was going to activate the demon bat. With his power, Baki becomes stronger, and subdues Jack with a chokehold that leaves him unconscious. And that's how Baki defeated his brother Jack, and becomes the champion of the underground arena. All the fighters congratulate him, and it's his brother Jack who gives him the championship belt. This is undoubtedly one of the most beautiful moments of the series. After this, Baki goes back to school as his girlfriend had convinced him. Before I continue with the next part of the video, let me tell you that this timeline is only about Baki, so don't be surprised if I leave out some details or fights from the series. This will be the first timeline of the Baki series, so tell me in the comment box who you would like the next timeline to be about. A couple of weeks pass and Baki has returned to school. However, he still hasn't retired from underground fighting. One day while at school, Baki falls asleep, but for some strange reason, his classmates start to tremble. I guess this is because of his intimidating presence. That same day, Mitsunari comes to his school to pay him a visit. What the old man wanted was to talk to Baki, so they meet, and he tells Baki the reason for his visit. He warns Baki of 5 dangerous criminals who have escaped from prison. These men were criminals sentenced to death, but for some strange reason, all 5 escaped from prison at the same time. It's as if they had already planned it a long time ago. According to Mitsunari, these criminals came to Japan looking for a fight. The first of them is Dorian, a criminal who was about to be executed. However, he manages to survive and escapes easily after beating the entire security team from his guardian. The next of them is Hector Doyle, a guy who had been sentenced to the electric chair. However, this does not even tickle him, and like Dorian, he also manages to escape easily. We also meet Sikorsky, a man who escapes from a maximum security prison in Russia, and he did it using only the strength of his fingers, because the prison was several meters underground. When he got out of prison, the first thing he did was to go to Alexander Galen's house to beat him up. He did it because Alexander was very respected and famous in Russia. And let's also remember that Alexander was not yet fully recovered after his fight with Jack. So, he was an easy prey for Sikorsky. In another underwater prison with Spec, a dangerous criminal who also escaped easily. He tells us that he is able to swim underwater for 5 minutes. Finally, we have Yanagi, a criminal known for having a poisonous hand with which he can kill dozens of men. He escaped after killing the entire security team guarding him. So the 5 convicts head for the city of Tokyo. The greatest desire of these men is to find an adversary who will give them a taste of defeat. And that's how this new arc begins. The 5 criminals arrive in Tokyo looking for a fight. The first to appear is Spec. The criminal arrives at Baki's school, and in front of his classmates, he beats him up and leaves him unconscious. Baki compared Spec's presence to that of the ogre. No doubt this guy was someone to fear. We also meet Dorian, a guy who fights using all kinds of weapons. He arrives looking for Dopo, but first he will have to face Retsu and Katsumi. Dorian easily defeats Katsumi, and then has a brief fight with Retsu, although he finally decides to leave the place since his target was Dopo. Later the 5 inmates go to the underground arena to visit Mitsunari. The old man asks them why they had come to Tokyo. They all agree that they just want to fight someone strong. Mitsunari tells them that he can make that wish come true. At that moment, Baki and the others arrive to confront the inmates. Mitsunari organizes a tournament of 10 participants and the rules are simple. Anyone can challenge them to a match regardless of the day or time. The fights can start at any time. The first fight is Dorian versus Dopo. They left the arena together, and after a quiet conversation, the fight started in the middle of the street. Dorian had come to Japan looking for Dopo, so his dream fight came true. But in the middle of the fight, Retsu appeared to take revenge for what happened in the dojo. However, Dopo tells him that he has everything under control. This fight didn't last long. The most shocking thing was when Dorian cut Dopo's hand with a special wire. According to Dorian, this type of material was used by astronauts in their space missions, so it could also be used as a weapon. That's why he easily cut Dopo's hand. But despite receiving such severe damage, Dopo attacked Dorian with his injured arm, although he actually did it to buy time and escape from the place. The truth is that if he had stayed fighting, he would have lost due to the loss of blood. In another part of the city, Igari Kanji kidnapped Sikorsky and took him to his gym to get revenge for what he had done to him. I didn't mention it, but at the beginning of this arc, Sikorsky brutally attacked Igari Kanji, and that's why he has to wear a bandage on his head. Anyway, Sikorsky beats the crap out of him and his henchmen. The Russian is determined to fight the strongest man in the world. Baki was taking a walk with his girlfriend, but suddenly Spec appears in front of him. Luckily, Hanayama shows up to save his friend and takes Spec to a nearby park. And well, this is where one of the best fights of the series takes place. Spec and Hanayama had a very brutal fight that is considered one of the best in the series. At the end of the night, Hanayama managed to defeat Spec. However, the criminal left him so badly injured that he had to be transported to a hospital. With this fight, Hanayama earned the respect of many fans. It was not only because he endured the fight, but also because he risked his life to help his best friend. The next day, Baki was at school when he suddenly received a visit from Hector Doyle. The criminal wanted to fight Baki right there, however, Baki fled out the window and avoided fighting at that moment. Not because he was afraid, but because he didn't want to involve his classmates in the conflict. But it did surprise Yanagi, another of the inmates was also looking for him. The colonel challenged Baki to a fight. In the middle of Baki and Yanagi's fight, Shibokagawa appeared to help the boy. Although he didn't really do much, as Baki ended up being defeated by Yanagi. At this point in the series, Goki had not yet overcome the trauma of his defeat against Yanagi. Later, Baki and the others gathered at Mitsunari's house. The old man scolded them for losing to the criminals. But what they didn't expect was that Dorian was going to burst in the meeting. It was actually a very bad idea on Dorian's part, as everyone present beat him up, so he had no choice but to escape to save his life. When they all returned home, Baki was surprised to discover that Sikorsky had broken into his girlfriend's house. The two have a brief fight, but the Russian manages to trick Baki and kidnaps his girlfriend. This really pisses Baki off, so he starts looking for him everywhere. What he didn't expect is that his own father had planned this. Yujiro was the one who gave Sikorsky this idea. He told him that the best way to motivate Baki was to take away something he loved. Yujiro and Sikorsky were about to have a fight in that place. However, at that very moment, Oliva Biscuit appears. The strongest man in the United States had arrived in Tokyo. Oliva had been hired by the government to catch the 5 prisoners. That's why he appeared at that moment. His intention was to catch Sikorsky and return him to prison. Baki also arrives on the scene and without hesitation starts throwing punches. He throws Sikorsky out of the building and also tries to hit Oliva Biscuit, but realizes that this guy is too tough and heavy. Baki doesn't stop and keeps looking for Sikorsky until he finally finds him in an abandoned building. In that place, Sikorsky was taking a bath but is interrupted by Baki. The boy doesn't even allow Sikorsky to put on his underpants, and they start fighting right there. Baki was very angry, so this time he doesn't play around and beats up Sikorsky. The Russian didn't even get a chance to defend himself. Oliva Biscuit also arrives on the scene and takes Sikorsky back to jail. Baki was so amazed by Oliva Biscuit's power that now one of his goals was to fight this man. After this, another couple of fights occur. Hector Doyle is the inmate who has the most participation, but since this is Baki's timeline, I'm just going to say that this inmate is the one who had the most development. He fought guys like Oliva Biscuit, Dopo, Retsu, and Katsumi. I think he's the inmate who had the most fights in this arc. He and Sikorsky are my 2 favorite inmates.
That was unreal.
Baki and Kozue continued to strengthen their relationship during the following chapters. The first time they slept together, something strange happened. That night, Yujiro Hanma showed up to give Baki a motivational talk. He basically told him that if he wanted to get stronger, he was going to have to sleep with his girl day and night, no matter what. Baki, like an obedient son, heeded his father and spent several days locked up with his girlfriend. To test his new strength, Baki received a visit from Yanagi, who came looking for a fight. What Yanagi didn't expect was that Baki had become too strong. He was no longer a boy, he was now a man. Baki attacked Yanagi with the whip strike, but things got more interesting when Sikorsky showed up to take revenge for what Baki had done to him a few days ago. However, Baki was now much stronger than before and easily defeated these guys at the same time. Yanagi and Sikorsky feel so humiliated that they even start crying. Baki doesn't want to keep fighting and leaves with his girlfriend to do other more important things. In his fight against the inmates, Baki had been poisoned by Yanagi. However, he didn't think much of it and didn't even go to the hospital. Obviously, it was a bad idea as the poison was slowly consuming his body. While this was going on, Dorian had been defeated by Dopo, and then Retsu gave him a blow so hard that it even made him lose his memory. Doyle was also defeated by Katsumi, but unlike the other inmates, he accepted defeat like a real man. Unfortunately, Yanagi did not like this and attacked him just as he was about to leave Japan. Doyle lost his sight and was now easy prey. Later, Oliva Biscuit found him and took him by force to jail. Sikorsky, who had already been defeated several times, was defeated again, but this time he lost to Jack Hanlon. Later, he also faced the master of environmental combat, Gaia, and as expected, Sikorsky lost again, but this time he begged for his life and accepted his defeat. Yanagi is defeated by Mothove, who cuts his hand and leaves him badly wounded. But the one who really knocks him out is Yujiro Hanma. The ogre wanted to hear him say that he accepted defeat. However, this did not happen, and then Yujiro knocked the criminal out with a single blow. All 5 inmates had been defeated and returned to prison, with the exception of Dorian. Baki, on the other hand, was still suffering from the effects of the poison, and it seemed that his Hanma blood would not be able to save him this time. A couple of chapters later, we meet a new character that will have relevance later on. I'm talking about the son of the legendary boxer, Muhammad Ali. Ali Jr., like his father, is an elite boxer, some say even superior to his father. He quickly became one of the most hated characters in the series, because when Baki was in the hospital, this guy was flirting with his girlfriend. Let's not forget that time he humiliated Yujiro without even touching him. Many hated him for being so self-centered. It was clear that this guy was coming for Baki. Baki kept getting worse, and the poison did not seem to disappear from his body. Retsu, as the good friend he is, takes Baki to China to try to cure him with ancestral medicines. The inmate arc ends, and now a new arc begins. Now Baki and his friends will participate in an important martial arts tournament, held every 100 years. The winner of this tournament will be recognized as Kaio Emperor, a title that is only awarded to the strongest fighters. Kaku Kaio, a man over 140 years old, will participate in this tournament. This guy is considered the strongest and most respected man in China. He is also nicknamed the Emperor of the Sea. Ali Jr. also decides to participate in this tournament, so after passing some tests he is accepted and will be part of Baki's team. What no one expected was that the ogre, Yujiro Hanma, would also participate in the tournament. Thus, the team of foreigners will try to defeat the Chinese fighters. As Retsu was of Chinese origin, he will have to fight against Baki's team. In the first round of the tournament, there are no good fights. Although in reality, it was quite obvious that the Japanese fighters were going to humiliate the rest of the participants. However, there were some interesting and funny moments. For example, when Oliva crushed that poor guy and made him look like a crab. Also in the first round, Yujiro humiliated Retsu's master. We could say that this guy's face fell off in shame. Also in this round, Baki fought against another fighter who was an expert in the use of poison. Although at first we thought that Baki was going to be defeated. In the end, he managed to eliminate the poison in his body thanks to the support of his girlfriend and his Hanma blood. Yujiro watched Baki's fights like a father watching his son play in the park. Later the two had an altercation in the hallways of the arena. Baki provoked Yujiro by telling him that he was probably afraid of him. This angered Yujiro, and in the blink of an eye he showed Baki he was the stronger. In the second round, the Japanese team crushed the Chinese team. In fact, none of the local fighters stood a chance against Baki and his friends. Emperor Kaku was so upset with this situation that he changed the rules, and it was now going to be a 5-on-5 tournament, with the winning team being the one with the most victories. As expected, Baki and the others won their respective fights. The only one who won for the opposing team was Retsu. But Yujiro, as usual, wanted to be the center of attention and exclaimed that his fight against Kaku was the most important, and that this fight would decide the winning team regardless of the previous fights. The fight was very entertaining. After a long time, someone gave Yujiro a tough fight, even making him fall on his back for the first time in a long time. But in the end, Yujiro emerged victorious, and thus Baki's team affirmed their total victory over the Chinese team. After this, Baki and the others returned to Japan. After returning to Japan, Ali Jr. continues with his plan to steal Baki's girlfriend. He knows that he will have to defeat Baki first, so before challenging him to a match, he decides to fight his friends first. Junior easily defeats Shibukagwa-sensei and Dopo Orochi. Everything seems to be going according to his plan. However, everything gets complicated when he faces Baki's older brother. Jack beats up Ali Jr. and leaves him so bad that he even has to go to the hospital. After this, Goki and Dopo take advantage of the situation and ask the young boxer for a rematch. As expected, Ali Jr. loses to both of them. But despite the beatings he had received, Ali Jr. continued with his plan to steal Baki's girlfriend. Finally, Ali and Yujiro confirmed the fight between their sons. I didn't mention that these two were very good friends and wanted to know which of the two boys was the stronger. The day of the fight arrived, and everyone was looking forward to it. Unfortunately for Ali Jr., it was one of those disappointing fights of the series. Baki only needed one punch to knock him out, and if it hadn't been for his father, Jr. would surely have died that day. After that shocking victory, Baki officially challenges his father Yujiro to a fight. The ogre accepts the challenge and says he will wait for the details of the fight. Baki begins new training to defeat his father. Baki's training consisted of facing imaginary enemies. Yes, I know how strange it sounds, but that's the way it is. Baki faced a copy of his father and a copy of Iron Michael, the former world boxing champion. In addition, using the power of imagination, he also managed to create a giant praying mantis and started fighting it. Stredham told Yujiro about Baki's peculiar training. The ogre burst out laughing. To him, this was nothing more than child's play. Baki knows that this training will not be enough, so he decides to go for a real challenge. His goal was to enter the Arizona State Prison, but to do so he had to commit a crime and be convicted by the courts. Baki doesn't think twice and kidnaps the President of the United States. He asks the President to send him to Arizona State Prison so he can confront Oliver Biscuit, also known as Mr. Unchained. The President accepts and Baki gets what he wanted. He is sent to the same prison where Oliva Biscuit was. When Baki arrived at the prison, he was surprised to see that Oliva had many luxuries and wasn't even in a cell like the other prisoners. Mr. Unchained had everything he wanted at his disposal. In this prison, he was number one. In that place, things would not be so easy for Baki, because there were many people who also wanted to fight with Oliva Biscuit. One of them was Jun Guevara. Guevara was known as Mir's second because of his speed. This guy was next on the list to face Oliva Biscuit, so Baki will have to wait until these two have their fight. Baki takes advantage of his stay in prison to train with the jobs assigned to him by the guards. Here he also meets Iron Michael, who is actually a representation of Mike Tyson. Oliva Biscuit is a very interesting man. He even has the luxury of having his wife in the same prison as him. His girl's name is Maria, and although she always seems to treat him badly, it's her way of showing her love. The day of the fight arrives, and although Jun Guevara made Oliva bleed, in the end, Mr. Unchained took the victory. It was a very curious and different fight than usual, but Oliva Biscuit took the opportunity to show his true strength and stomp Guevara. This made Baki excited. He couldn't wait any longer to face him. During the following days, Baki provoked Oliva Biscuit in every possible way. He wanted Mr. Unchained to fight him, and he knew that the only way to achieve this was to hurt his pride. Baki put on a show in which he imitated Biscuit. He showed that he could also do whatever he wanted in that prison. He dared to tell him that he looked like an old man, and continued to provoke him until he made him angry. However, Biscuit was not going to play along with Baki, so he decided not to fight in that place. Biscuit tried to forget that humiliation and went to spend a nice time with Maria, but his pride did not let him rest, and he decided to schedule this fight against Baki. The warden agreed the plan was to broadcast this fight worldwide. Biscuit wanted to humiliate Baki in front of everyone. The thing is that when Oliva went to visit Baki in his cell, the boy started to provoke him again. He told her that this need to fight in front of an audience was pathetic. A true fighter is willing to fight anytime, anywhere, regardless of whether there is an audience or not. Baki kicked him in the face and challenged him to fight right there. Mr. Unchained finally accepted the boy's challenge and took off his suit to start the fight. From the beginning of the fight, Biscuit treated Baki like a toy. Clearly the boy was at a disadvantage in terms of physical strength. Oliver threw such a punch that it sent him through several concrete walls, and even sent him out into the prison yard. Several guards were present, but they knew they could do nothing but watch. Baki tried to hit Biscuit, but his blows did nothing to his huge mass of muscles. Biscuit slammed Baki to the ground and almost knocked him unconscious. It was at that moment when Baki finally activated his demon back, and with one punch he managed to knock Oliva Biscuit out. Mr. Unchained was very surprised by the sudden increase in strength that Baki had. However, that was not going to be enough to defeat him. Oliva Biscuit uses the Pac-Man technique and eats Baki. However, his biggest mistake is to use this technique twice on Baki, as the boy finds a way to break it.
I'll go where I'm needed.
Okay. The fuck?
Do we need backup?
Oh, what a funny ass game.
On the move. It's why we're here. Let's go.
Let's go Roche, bro.
Say you're sorry. On it.
Don't you have damage?
Gotta move.
I'm farming all game.
On my way.
Let's just do it, bro. Whatever.
Stay alert.
If it doesn't work. The MPTPN. Oh, they don't know. They don't know. Alright, take the Aegis. I'm gonna grab the cheese. That should be a great move.
Your bottom tower's in a tight spot.
Soon a path of fire. The great end.
Just a high ground. I don't have ult, bro. We gotta chill. And just try to delay.
Moving.
Might
Try to
wanna
cut the
check
wave.
your bottom tower. Hope you were partial to your bottom tower.
Take me to the fire. Wear it well. I'm ready. What did you say? It could be this way. Let's go.
Things improve until you make mistakes. You were doing very well. I'm very proud of you.
Time to end this battle.
Dude, my gyro is so useless. Literally farm all game just to do. Well played, beast. Dude, this Earthshaker is shit.
Your mid tower's gone. Let's forget that ever happened. About your ancient.
Scissor shaker shit. Axe, you literally just fucking go in and suicide, bro. You did that like 5 times and that's why we lost.